Under an Act of Parliament, the appointment shall be considered by a committee of the relevant House. Additionally, the National Assembly Standing Order 216 spells out the mandate of this committee, which among others is to vet and report on all appointments within its purview. The purpose of this vetting is to ascertain your suitability to discharge the responsibility of the office of a permanent representative that you've been nominated to serve. We had asked the public if they had any memoranda for or against you. There is one that was against the appointment of all of you, like all of you in the sense of all the appointments that happened recently, particularly those ones of whose names were of former politicians. And the contest was on the approval of Mutahi Kagwe, Lee Kinyanjui, William Kabogo. Those ones are as cabinet secretaries, and on you and Babu Namamba as permanent representative of the UN, so rather UNEP, but UNEP representative. You've responded to the memoranda, and this committee later will consider both memorandas. At this point, then, I would like to ask you to give us a brief history of yourself, even though we know your history, but for purposes of record, family, employment, and education background. I'll give you at least 10 minutes to do that.
Honorable Chair, honorable members of this committee, let me, from the outset, express my appreciation for this opportunity to appear before you for this very important constitutional process. Let me also express my appreciation to the appointing authority, His Excellency the President, for offering me this opportunity to serve our country in this important space. Honorable Chair, I am a Kenyan citizen, born in Western Kenya, in Budalangi, Busia County. I have gone to school in this country up to the level of the university, attended the University of Nairobi, Parkland School of Law, where I attained a bachelor's degree in law, and was subsequently admitted to the bar as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And I remain a member of the Kenyan bar as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya to date. I also remain a member of the Law Society of Kenya, the society that manages the profession, the legal profession. I acquired further or postgraduate education, Honorable Chair. I was offered a scholarship by the State Department, the US government, that afforded me the opportunity to pursue a master's degree in international law at American University in Washington, D.C. in the US, where I had the opportunity not only to focus a lot more on the depths of the law, but also importantly, and perhaps relevant to this particular vetting, to focus on the workings of international organizations that include the United Nations. I have also had the privilege, Honorable Chair, to serve this country in various capacities. I have served as an officer of the High Court, which is a role assigned to pretty much every member of the bar or every member on the role of advocates. And so I remain an officer of the High Court of Kenya. I have also had the privilege to serve as a member of this honorable House. For 2 terms, I represented Budalangi constituency in Parliament between 2007 and 2017. And during that stint in this House, I also had the privilege to head a number of important committees. I was chairman of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of this House. I also chaired the Public Accounts Committee. And I was also a co-chair of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitution Review that helped to facilitate our journey to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. I have also had the privilege to serve on the executive or in the executive arm of government. And I served as Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports in the coalition government headed by the third President of the Republic, His Excellency the late Mwai Kibaki, and Prime Minister Raila Odinga. I served in that administration until its conclusion in 2013. I also did serve as a Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs between 2018 and 2022, before the last elections, and departed that position, Honorable Chair, in February 2022 to take up a new assignment as head of international relations in the campaign of our current president, His Excellency President William Ruto. And upon conclusion of that election, Honorable Chair, I was subsequently appointed as Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts, which is now characterized as Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, a position in which I served between October 2022 and July 2024. I consider it to have been a very special privilege to serve my country in those capacities. A unique opportunity, actually, to have bestrode the three arms of government, having had a privilege to serve within the judiciary, within the legislature, and the executive. Honorable Chair, I have had the privilege of receiving a number of honors and awards. In December 2012 rather, His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki awarded me the Order of the Elder of the Golden Heart, first class, which really is the highest civilian honor in our nation. And that honor was really partly in recognition of my contribution to the journey to our new Constitution 2010. I have also had the privilege of receiving other awards, as I have enumerated in the questionnaire, including the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship, which is a fellowship granted by the government of the United States of America through the State Department, the African Inspirational Leadership Award, which is awarded by the Voice Achievers of Netherlands. The Distinguished Young Global Leaders role is a role run by the World Economic Forum, to which I was inducted in 2009 in my second year as a Member of Parliament. And also in recognition of the work I have previously done, especially in the legal profession and in the civil society sector, where I have also done some work, I received the Global Social Justice Award in 2003 by Jubilee Netherlands. So the long and short of it, that is me, Honorable Chair. I am a proud son of my mother Agatha and my late father Peter, and also a proud father of 7 children. Yes.
Brilliant. That's a good one. So I will allow members to ask questions. Honorable Ababu has the capacity to handle more than 3 questions at a time. But I will ask 3 questions, and you respond to the 3. We'll take the next set. Honorable Yusuf, Honorable Martha Wangare, and Honorable Kandia.
Thank you, Chair. I've had the privilege of serving with the nominee in the 10th and 11th parliaments, if I'm not wrong. So I absolutely have no doubt about his competency, but I have 2 or 3 interrelated questions. The first one is the fact that he's been a cabinet secretary. In fact, he's been the chief administrative officer for foreign affairs, and a cabinet secretary. So I just wanted to find out his motivation in this particular job, given the fact that this looks more like a demotion, like a climb down. And also in terms of conflict of interest, in the sense that he's been the boss of many of the diplomatic stuff in the past. I don't know how his relation would be now that one of your former subordinates would be a director of the department that you would be serving under as an ambassador. So I don't know how you would be, how you'd manage that and how it will affect or assist your job as our ambassador at the United Nations. The second one is that we do have, you're going to be the ambassador in charge of UNEP and UNON. These are two major, but we have a third UN agency. And at the moment, it appears as if we have two missions. We have a mission that is in charge of UNEP and UNON, and we have another mission in charge of UN Habitat in two separate places, separate budgets, separate ambassadors. I just want to ask your opinion as a former head of the ministry, as well as now, if you are selected, approved by this committee, the incoming ambassador, whether you think there is a need, particularly for a poor country like ours, is there a need to maintain two missions in the same place? There isn't a lot of work for two ambassadors, I must say, having worked in the UN system. And then finally, you're an international lawyer. I mean, international affairs is in a bit of a crisis. The world is in a global crisis. And Kenya has been a very strong subscriber to the idea of the rule-based global order. But this idea is under a major threat at the moment, as a serious threat. We can see that the Ukraine-Russia war, disregarding international borders there, of a major power trying to take a little country. We have another major military power, Israel, which has been fighting a war in Gaza, which has attacked its neighbors, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen, with impunity. And lately we have the president of a superpower, an incoming president of a superpower, the United States, that is threatening to seize Greenland, taking over Canada and Panama by force if necessary. Do you think these ideas of kind of a rule-based system is longer viable in our rough and troubled world? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to note that those of us doing more than 2 terms have definitely worked with you, Honorable Babu. But I also give accolades to your mother, Agatha, because the name she gave you, I was trying to read it. I see why you use Ababu na Mwamba. Now I'm wondering, is it Pust or Fik, or is it one name or 2 names? Maybe you will tell us what that is. But anyway, to the substantial question. Number 1, UNEP being based in Nairobi, how do you think we can integrate UNEP with our plan as a country so that we feel it more? Because I feel like it is detached, yet it is in this country. Though it's not just serving Kenya, how do you think we can improve and link it up with the better and the bottom-up agenda for our country so that we can feel it more as a people and as a country? Number 2, in your career, and you have been very lucky because you've served both in the legislature and in the executive, and also have been a lawyer and an advocate of the High Court, I would ask specifically on youth and sports docket, where you have served twice in different time that you have been a CS in that ministry. considering our youth badge, unemployment rate, what would you pick as one of your most held dear achievement in terms of contribution to the young people in this country? I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want also to congratulate the nominee for this position. However, I have one or two questions. In 2003, 2004, you won a Global Justice Award by Jubilee Netherlands for what they call landmark work at Chambers of Justice, including Cancel Debts for the Child campaign, CADEC. Kenya is still reeling from massive foreign debts that cobble huge percentage of its revenue. What exactly did you achieve to deserve that award? And to debt cancellation efforts? And two, what, in your view, are the steps the country should take in diplomacy to cut back on its foreign debt portfolio? And what did you, during your 10 years, see CAS to actualize such ideas, if any? And then the last one, I want to ask one question, because this position, UNEP, United, I think it is one of the best positions at the moment because of environmental issues. What will you do in order to help our major towns? For example, Nairobi. We have a lot of pollution, we have a lot of garbage all over, and also major towns in Kenya. What will you do to make sure that you engage our governors to make sure that our country achieves the role of hosting this UNEP mission in Nairobi?
Respond, Waziri.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. I will just roll one by one as the questions have come at me from Honorable Hassan, Honorable Wangari, and Honorable Kandie. Honorable Hassan has asked me some very fundamental questions that go to the very heart, both of the role I have been nominated for, and also the state of multilateralism generally, globally, and the threats posed to multilateralism, and the principles and values that underpin multilateralism as a concept and a practice. And let me start with your question number 3, Honorable Hassan, through Chair. You're asking the threats posed to the rule-based global order, and whether it can even be sustained, whether we can sustain this rule-based global order as we have known it since the end of the Second World War. My position, Honorable Chair, is that Kenya has taken a very consistent and a very progressive position on matters multilateralism generally, and on this matter of a rule-based global order. One, Kenya has been very clear on the inviolability of boundaries, which is also a core value and principle that underpins the United Nations itself, that boundaries are inviolable. Sovereignty is sanctified, and that really is the position our country holds, and a position that I personally, both as an attorney and a practitioner within this field, holds dear, that we must continue to uphold the inviolability of boundaries, of borders, and protect the sanctity of sovereignty. Of course, threats will always confront humanity, and that is why we have measures, including organizations like the UN, to confront those challenges, but we must remain firm that the moment you allow interference with these two principles unabated, inviolability of borders and the sanctity of sovereignty, then you will throw the global order into chaos, total chaos. The reason why the League of Nations collapsed before the world was thrown into the Second World War was because of half-hearted measures to stand up to the values that the world had come together to uphold under the League of Nations. The United Nations, as a successor to the League of Nations, has been very clear in not walking the path that the League of Nations walked. And that means that then those who bear responsibility, and this includes the UN Security Council, where Kenya has served recently, and I'm very proud, Honorable Chair, that while at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I played a very central role in the campaign that led Kenya's election as a member of the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council bears a critical role in upholding these values and these principles. All members through the UN General Assembly and the various agencies must remain faithful to these principles. And if confirmed, if approved for this role, I certainly, Honorable Chair, would make my contribution in supporting the position of our country and supporting the values and principles that make the UN the bulwark against the threats that the Honorable Hassan has brought to our attention. You have also asked about the architecture of the UN office in Nairobi, and have drawn our attention to the fact that we actually have a what you can call double mission at Gigiri. The mission we call UNEP-UNON, handling the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, and the UN office in Nairobi, UNON. And then you have the mission assigned to UN Habitat. Allow me, Honorable Chair, with your permission, to refer this Honorable Committee to a report you have previously prepared. And I had occasion to look at that report. I believe you released that report in 2023 or thereabouts, which draws attention to this issue. And I want to say that I wholeheartedly agree with this committee on the position you have taken, that number one, we need to harmonize Kenya's presence at the UN office in Nairobi, and as much as possible, streamline the operations of that place. It would be neater, it would be more affordable, it would be administratively more harmonious if you had a single mission. Indeed, if you look at the diplomatic presence of pretty much all the countries accredited to this capital, and by extension to Gigiri, they run a unified mission. You look at most of them, they run a unified mission where you have one ambassador representing their country to the government of Kenya, and also to UNON, UNEP, and UN Habitat. In the fullness of time, it may be useful and prudent for Kenya to explore the same path. Ultimately, it would save on cost, and it would also cut a lot of red tape that come with running a double mission. And perhaps the committee might want to urge the parent ministry, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, to follow through on the recommendation that the committee has made. I place myself available in the event that I'm confirmed for this position. I would make myself available to contribute my thoughts on this matter towards a position that would be most beneficial to the country. Honorable Hassan has also asked me whether I feel demoted, whether I feel, this is quite interesting. You know, Honorable Chair, when I first appeared here in this same hall, sitting at this same chair in October 2022, and I was being vetted for the position of Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Hassan, you may want to know that a question was posed to me during that vetting on whether I felt I had been sent to the wrong ministry. Because the general sentiment in the committee at that time was that I should have been sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the question was posed to me as to how I would find motivation, because I had just come from the foreign space. I had served at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I had just completed my task as head of international relations for our presidential candidate. And so it was almost expected that I would be named Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs. But I assured the committee at that time that I come from the school of thought best exemplified by the words of Martin Luther King, the immortal words of Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King says that if it is your commission to be a street sweeper, that is what God has ordained that you do with your life. Sweep the street so well that even the hosts of heaven would have no choice but stop and wonder and marvel and say, behold, there lives a street sweeper here. Who sweeps streets so well? It reminds me of the poetry of Shakespeare, the music of Beethoven, and the creativity of Michelangelo. That must be quite a street sweeper. That philosophy is about grasping any task handed to you and giving it your all. That is my philosophy. And so see, I was sent to the Ministry of Sports, and I believe that in less than 2 years, I elevated that ministry to one of the most phenomenal ministries in this country. Today, all talk in Kenya is about CHAN, AFCON, Talanta Sports City. I sit back and say, behold, what a street sweeper. The street sweeper who brought CHAN, who brought AFCON, who brought Talanta Sports City. And I am just happy that I had the opportunity to serve in that space and put my best foot forward and have helped my country to rise to a certain level in that space. So, am I feeling like I might struggle to reset my sails, Honorable Chair? Honorable Chair, the United Nations is the collective conscience of humanity. This is where the world converges to find solutions to the most phenomenal challenges of peace and security, challenges of poverty and hunger, challenges of climate change and environmental degradation. The UN is the focal point of finding solutions to these challenges for humanity. The United Nations office in Nairobi is only one of only four offices that coordinates operations of the UN globally. You have Nairobi, you have Geneva, you have Vienna, you have New York. So it is a critical diplomatic station, absolutely critical. The United Nations Environmental Programme, or UNEP, today is seized off the most critical agenda to address what is an existential threat to humanity. Would I consider being handed an assignment to represent Kenya in that space a demotion? No. I would consider it a reassignment to a different role, a different responsibility. I believe I'm almost tailor-made for this position, given my learning, my intellectual capacity, my experience, my exposure, my globalness. I believe that this is a role that I would execute very well. I would not require any extra motivation because of what I believe the UN and UNEP to be, to the world and to the country. And let me also disclose to you, Honorable Chair, and the committee and the public, that I consider it to have been honorable and respectful and protocol that His Excellency the President invited me to a sitting to discuss this responsibility before it was made public, which I want to thank His Excellency the President for that. And I know exactly what His Excellency the President expects of me in that role because he personally explained it to me. I know where it ranks in his agenda and in the delivery of our better dream, and I believe that it is a task I would sufficiently execute, Honorable Chair, given the opportunity. Chair, Honorable Wangari, my friend, my colleague, has asked me about my names. Those are just my names. But I prefer to use the names I inherited from my grandfather. My grandfather was called Ababu Tera Luecheche. Okay? So I carry his names. So ideally, actually, I find a lot of pride in carrying the names of my grandfather because in those names I find his spirit and the spirit of the lineage that I carry. And so Ababu Namwamba, Ababu is the name I carry from my grandfather. Namwamba is the name I carry from the family lineage, which is a long, large family. And the other names are given names, including baptismal names. You have asked a critical question, Mheshimiwa, about UNEP being integrated in our Kenyan agenda. And I couldn't agree more with you that even where I'm seated myself, I find UNEP and UNON a bit removed, a bit remote from what happens in this country. You go to Geneva and you see how the United Nations office in Geneva, how integrated it is in the soul of Switzerland. You find the same in Austria with the work of the UN office in Vienna. And certainly, the work of the UN headquarters in New York is a critical component of the work of the US government. This committee may want to note that even in the nomination of what they call the US ambassador to the UN, it's a critical role. Is a very high-level position, the manner in which the US picks their representative to the UN. And so we need to elevate, we need to hoist higher the stature of Gigiri, both in terms of the mission there, the kind of citizens we send to populate that space, and the agenda that as a country, because at the end of the day, Honorable Chair, even in the interaction between nations, the driving force is strategic national interest. And we must ask ourselves, we host UNEP, we host UN Habitat, we host UNON. What is our strategic national interest as a country? And certainly, given the opportunity, Honorable Wangari, through Honorable Chair, I would want to contribute to that. I would want to contribute to elevating the stature of Gigiri and integrating the work of UNEP and the work that goes on at UNON in what goes on in the rest of the country. So that when we are implementing better, we should be able to join dots between the programs of better and what goes on in Gigiri. Then we'll make it more relevant, and even the people of Kenya will feel the value of hosting these important offices. You have also asked me, I have served as Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports twice, and you have asked me what I would consider my most important contribution. I would name just two. The first is that when I first served in the Kibaki administration, I was the first minister in the history of this country to enact legislation to govern that whole space of sports and youth. And I remember on the 15th day of January 2013, as we headed towards the elections of that year, I stood on the floor of this house in the main chamber to move myself, because at that time you are both minister and member of parliament. I stood on the floor of the house to move the bill that has come to be called the Sports Act, which has really contributed to consolidating that space and giving it form, giving it substance. Lately, I would say that in my last posting, I have succeeded to elevate the stature of this space. And because you see, when you are sent to the Ministry of Sports and Youth Affairs, and as I was asked during my vetting at that time, it appeared like it was a second generation ministry. But in the brief period that I have been in that ministry, I have succeeded to elevate the stature of that ministry and put in place some significant measures to focus on talents as an economic resource. Talents as an economic resource. And that this country can actually exploit the talents of our young people to make very serious contributions to the economic development of our country, to generate employment. And you can see in my time there was very deliberate investment in infrastructure. I mentioned the Talanta Stadium, the work that is being finished at Kasarani, Nyayo, all that was part of investing in infrastructure. We invested in identification of talents through the Talanta Hela program. Today, when you see our girls playing at the World Cup, our boys going to AFCON, our under-20 boys, it is a product, fruits of that effort. So I can say that for the time I have had opportunity to serve in that space, I have made very substantive contributions. Honorable Kandie, you also posed 3 questions to me. The third question is how UNEP can help with the challenges of the environment in our cities, in our major towns. And I'll just go back to the answer I have already given, that Kenyans need to feel the presence of UNEP and UNON more substantively. And I want to be that, when you are in this position, you have the privilege of being an ambassador who sits at home. Because ordinarily ambassadors serve away from home. But now you are both foreign in terms of Gigiri being a foreign space, but you're also domestic because you are at home. I want to use my presence here, Honorable Chair. I want to use my presence here to make UNEP and UNON more visible and more engaged. I want to work with members of parliament. I want to work with the organizations that work in this space to deliver the benefits of these organizations to the constituencies and to the grassroots, aware that ours is a bottom-up agenda. You also asked my contribution in government to control of debt. And I can tell you that sitting in cabinet, I have always been a very strong advocate of 2 issues. One is prudent utilization of resources, so that whether resources are generated locally or resources are borrowed, they have to be prudently utilized. And secondly, fair trade practices and fair credit systems, because the world today is very unfair, and this is an agenda which His Excellency the President has executed very well on the international stage, that the credit system, the World Bank, the IMF, the whole global credit system must be reformed to be more fair to the developing world, of which Kenya is a part. You also asked about the Jubilee Award and what I did to deserve it. I worked to draw attention to the issues that, in fact, I sit back and watch the speeches by His Excellency President William Ruto and other African leaders and leaders from the Global South, and they talk about the unfairness of the global financial system. Those are the issues we drew the world's attention to, that at the end of the day, even when you talk about the environment, unless you deal with poverty, unless you deal with need, you really cannot make much progress. And that was really a campaign to draw global attention to that. It was a media campaign. It was a campaign that took me to various universities across Europe, in Strasbourg, in France, in The Hague, in Groningen, in the south of Netherlands, a global campaign to draw attention to that. That is what ultimately put me in the global eye. And of course, also, as an attorney, I remember filing cases that included cases that drew attention to the right to education for HIV positive children, which just sort of revolutionized our concept of civil rights and liberties. So, Honorable Chair, those will be my responses to the 9 questions posed by the 3 honorable members.
Going to the next set, I want to urge members to keep your questions brief, and Ababu Tera Mheshimiwa, you also keep your responses brief. I'll go this way, then come there. Honorable Memusi, Honorable Kwenya, and then Honorable Abdulkadir.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations, Mheshimiwa, for your nomination on this very important role. Mheshimiwa, mine starts with family. You have indicated that you have 7 children, but I'm a bit confused here on your CV that your marital status says single. How is that? Are you divorced?
I find that personal, and
no, it's important.
No, it's not important.
Okay.
Let me just rule that it's not important. And the Bababu ignore it. You don't have to respond to that. Let's go to the.
You know, it's on record, but
well,
I will
we have
skip
more
it.
serious business, Honorable Members.
I'll skip it. Mheshimiwa, you served at the Foreign Affairs. What did you do to lobby for Kenyans to occupy higher ranks at the UN, especially UNEP and UNON? Thank you.
Honorable Kwenya. No children, please.
Of course, I can't go that. But Chair, thank you, Chair. In a special way, I want to recognize contribution of the nominee to the nation since his youthful days when we used to admire him. But now, that notwithstanding, Chair, there is a very fundamental document that we have here, the questionnaire that should be filled in by the nominee. And certainly this is not the first time that the Honorable Ababu is meeting this or interacting with this questionnaire. And I see a lot of ambiguities, Chair, given the fact that this is a document of Parliament and therefore needed to be given some level of consideration and attention by the nominee, because I think the questions that have been raised here are fundamental for records. And specifically, I want to go to question number 21 on the issue of deferred income, future benefits. The questionnaire envisions the candidate to list the sources, amounts, and the dates. But the nominee has just stated the sources but not the amounts. Then on the other one is on sources of income. There's a lot of ambiguity because the questionnaire envisions list sources of an amount of all incomes received during the year, the calendar year, I mean, all that. Then number 25 again, statement of net worth. But of course I must appreciate the nominee is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And looking at his result slip, either MADS do not like him or he doesn't like MADS. The issue that, what the statement or this, what this questionnaire is about is a statement of your financial net worth. A statement in accounting terms is a list of your assets and liabilities. It's because either if 500 million is your net worth, then it means there's a lot of ambiguity here, Chair, and I think this is a bit of clarity for purposes of record because this is a document of Parliament. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Chair. My mind is on climate change. My question is on climate change. I think climate change affects our environment in very many ways. And UNEP is about environment. I want to know what role will you take in combating climate change, and also in climate change finance and investment. What linkages will you create? How will you be able to combat climate change through your position? Thank you.
You can take one more because they were a bit brief.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me also join my colleagues in congratulating the nominee for the nomination and also for the positive acceptance of the nomination. I have two very short questions. Number one, Honorable Babu, I've had a keen interest in your profile and I've gone through the profile you have shared with us. You pride yourself to be a champion of Pan-Africanism and also a champion of shared continental prosperity. The office that you will be occupying at UNEP, if Parliament approves the nomination, we will expect you to be our best sweeper in the UN corridors, according to your own words. What strategies will you put in place to ensure that Kenyans who feel underrepresented in medium to senior ranks at the UNEP shall be considered in future, owing to the fact that we host the only UN headquarters in the Global South? Then finally, I laud your initiatives at the Ministry of Sports, one of them being the Talenta Hela. What strategy will you put in place to ensure that the many young Kenyans will also find a space through initiatives and programs like Mazingira Hela, if you're considered for this position? Thank you.
In 15 minutes, if you respond, Mheshimiwa.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Momisi, don't worry about children. You know, in the African sense, we even raise children of brothers and those who are not your own, but they are your children. And so don't worry too much. Yes, we are African and Africa is our business. You have asked a question on the role I have played to lobby for Kenya to occupy higher ranks, and I have already shared with this committee my contribution to supporting. I led from the very front in the process of getting Kenya to sit on the UN Security Council, and also even pushing Kenyans who apply for various positions within the UN system. It is a role which I can assure this committee that I would want to continue to play, so that we elevate the presence of our country in these spaces. Because the truth is that we are rather thin. We are rather thin in the middle and higher levels of the UN and other international organizations. Honorable Kwenya, you have raised issues on financial issues, specifically question 21 on deferred income and future benefits. And indeed, I have provided a statement there that I would expect some income and benefits from my holdings. I do hold some interests in Safaricom, the Cooperative Bank, Kenya Power, and I have indicated, without really providing specifics, because ordinarily you wouldn't know the specific amount of dividends that would accrue to you in any fiscal cycle, and so. But I have disclosed where I would expect some revenues to flow from. And on question 23, again, sources of income. I have indicated there are sources that have been available to me. And up to my last posting as Cabinet Secretary, which I have indicated, and also, Honorable Chair, I'm a pensioner from this House, which I have also indicated as a source of income. Question 25 on net worth, which I have provided there, and Honorable Chair.
Point of order, Chair. You see, Honorable Namwamba, the question is express that you list the sources and amounts, because the amounts are known, especially on your emoluments as Cabinet Secretary. You know what is due to you, how much is your pension. It should be stated in figures, because so that then we get out of these.
I will direct that you can provide later that information that Honorable Kwenya is asking.
Yes, thank you.
Proceed to deal with the other question.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would also, just for clarity and for the avoidance of doubt, I perhaps expected the committee to take judicial notice that the emoluments for a Cabinet Secretary is public knowledge. So is the emolument for parliamentary pension. But as you have directed, Chair, we shall provide the fuller details immediately after this session. Thank you. There's also the question on the net worth and the requirements to state the financial net worth, which has been stated there, and that is calculated from my two residences, my residence in Nairobi, my residence in back in Busia County, my country residence, my business interests, my shareholdings, my pension. That has been compounded to come to the total net worth of 500 million shillings. And should there be need for any additional information, Honorable Chair, that information is available and would furnish the committee with the same. Honorable Abdikader, role in combating climate change, and I would say that there is no greater urgency in the world today than confronting the three planetary risks or perils: the peril of climate change, the peril of pollution, and the peril of biodiversity loss. Those are issues that are at the very core of the work of UNEP and the UN generally, and I want to make my contribution to this. Our country is very clear. The head of state, His Excellency the President, as the country's diplomat #1, has led from the front in drawing attention to important interventions like the carbon credit system, important interventions like carbon sequestration interventions. These are interventions that I would want to make a contribution to, and even see how we can push harder in realizing our better targets, like the target to plant 15 billion trees between 2022 to 2032, that 10-year period, which is really part of our contribution to carbon sequestration as an agenda. And so certainly I'll place myself available to make a significant contribution to that. And Honorable Chair, right now, UNEP is seized over the important agenda of the Plastics Treaty, an important instrument that would make a very key contribution to this whole space. Again, I'll make myself available, deploying my skills as an attorney, as a legislator also, to make a contribution to the conclusion of that treaty and making the benefits of that treaty available to Kenya and the rest of the world. And finally, Honorable Ikana, again, I agree with you that we have to elevate the representation of Kenyans in UNEP, and we must find a way to amplify the presence of Kenya, not just within UNEP and UNON, but within the UN system generally, because Kenya has always been an important player. And you have also shared an important thought on finding space for young people. Meita mazingira mazingira hela. And certainly we will want every space we go into, we must be conscious that we have a huge youth bulge, Honorable Chair. Our young people are skilled, they're energetic, they're innovative, and certainly I would want to explore spaces available within this space that can further advance the work I had already started with young people in my last position, where we provided opportunity for young people to deploy and benefit from their innate talents. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Vice Chair. You didn't show any interest. I only respond when you show an interest, but please proceed. You're taking more time in arguing than proceeding to ask your question. Please.
Anyway, thank you. Congratulations for your nomination as an ambassador, Ambassador Namwamba. The question is that in the year 2023, you are accused in the floor of Parliament for mismanaging the Kenya Special Olympic team through delayed procurement of air tickets, procuring substandard kits, and many other things. And at the same time, you are also accused of failing to take charge of your ministry instead of shifting blame to the Federation, blaming the Olympic Committee for issues related to Special Olympics and the Football Federation for a number of issues. Now, taking into account that after we finished with you here, your name won't be forwarded to Parliament. If approved, how will you address concerns regarding to your past mismanagement and ensure that you uphold transparency, take responsibility and decisions instead of passing it to other bodies, and which is going to promote Kenya's global reputation effectively in your new role as an ambassador, Bwana Namwamba?
I think you took it with this one of the Vice Chair.
What's wrong with this man?
Congratulations, Honorable Namwamba, for your nomination. You have actually responded to most of the questions, but I just want to take you down history lane, a bit of history, because I'm sure some of these things it gives an opportunity to address now, so that even on the floor of the House, we'll be able to know that these are things that you've addressed. In 2023, while serving as Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts, you submitted a correspondence to Parliament that was described at that time by the Honourable Speaker as strange and perceived by members of Parliament as contemptuous and disdain towards the institution of Parliament. In the letter, you refer to the issues raised by members as hearsay. And in the same letter, it appeared that you lectured the House on how to conduct its business, displaying an attitude that was probably condescending. Although you subsequently withdrew the letter and offered unreserved apology to the House, the contents of that correspondence remain relevant in assessing your attitude, conduct, and regard for democratic institutions. Now, if approved, how will you ensure that your engagement with stakeholders, both locally and internationally, demonstrates the highest level of respect, diplomacy, and regard for the principles of collaboration and mutual respect to institutions? Thank you.
May I respond?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Karima raises an issue that was a concern raised with regard to the Ministry of Sports in 2013. I believe it was in August 2023, to be specific. And it is a matter that related to our Paralympic team that had a mission or an assignment in Germany. I did appear in the House and substantively responded to those issues. It actually emerged that a lot of those issues were as a result of some misunderstanding, even in terms of the roles. And I believe, Honorable Chair, that that matter was sufficiently canvassed in that session. This is a house of record, and it is on record that I sufficiently responded to those issues, and those issues were then considered to be sufficiently dealt with. I have no doubt, Honorable Chair, that I have left a very good record as Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, and my record speaks for itself. I have raised the stature of that ministry. We have raised the whole space of investing in the talents of our young people, investing in infrastructure, the entire infrastructure program going on right now, whether you talk about the new stadium at Talanta or the renovations at Kasarani, Nyayo, Buhungu, Kandui, and other places, is because of the work I have done there. I have no doubt that being accountable to Parliament is a responsibility that comes with the office, and when issues arise, you bear the responsibility to account. I accounted to the House, and the record bears me as having sufficiently accounted, Honourable Chair. The question raised by the Honourable Major Retired Sheikh, the Vice Chair of the committee, again refers to another matter. In fact, the matter is tied to that matter, because when those issues arose, I did send correspondence to the House, and I was summoned to the House. I appeared before the House. The House did express the displeasure through both the Honourable Speaker and Honourable members. I withdrew that correspondence, Honourable Chair. I rendered an unqualified, unequivocal apology to the House, and knowing the rules and procedures of the House, Honourable Chair, as a House of record, once I rendered apology and withdrew, that matter was extinguished. It is off record. And I want to assure Honourable Sheikh and this committee that I have a very strong commitment to the spirit of collaboration, respect, decorum, etiquette, protocol. Those are things that define my service, and I assure this committee that I will be upholding the very, very highest standards of that, both in my dealings with this House, within the diplomatic corps, and with the Kenyan public and international community in general. I give that assurance. I submit, Honourable Chair.
Honourable Babu Namwamba, in 5 minutes, why should this committee consider you to be our next permanent representative to UNEP Union?
Honourable Chair, I have stated to this committee that I consider the United Nations to be a critical platform for the world to confront challenges that face humanity. Challenges that range from poverty and need and want to peace and security across the world, climate change, and the environment generally. I consider this to be an important position where our country can continue to demonstrate its thought leadership as a diplomatic force. I also consider, Honorable Chair, that the presence of UNON in Nairobi is a critical, or rather great honor to this country. And in that spirit, allow me, Honorable Chair, to go on record as honoring the great Kenyan Dr. Joseph Odero Jowi, former ambassador of Kenya to the United Nations in New York, passed away in 2015, 10 years ago, but made a critical contribution, Honorable Chair, in convincing the world to bring the headquarters of UNEP to Nairobi. In the presence of the UN here, making Kenya only the 4th country in the world with a UN headquarter, and the only one in the global south, and in fact the UN headquarters in Africa, it is a great honor to this country. Kenya needs a personality that is well-schooled, well-experienced, well-anchored to deliver benefits of the presence of the UN in Nairobi to this country, and to help solidify Kenya's position as an important actor in the diplomatic space. Honorable Chair, I believe with humility that my training as an attorney, which also includes training that has extended to the international space. I did indicate here that in my postgraduate studies at American University, my thesis was actually around international organizations and the interaction with the world. I believe that I have the intellectual ability to execute this task. In addition to that intellectual ability, I bring experience in statecraft. Having had the privilege to operate within the judiciary as an advocate of the High Court, within this parliament, the legislature, as a member of parliament for 10 years, serving in the executive twice, actually 3 times in 3 administrations, the Kibaki administration, the Uhuru Kenyatta administration, and our Kenya Kwanza administration. I believe I have gathered sufficient experience that would prove useful to this space. And finally, Honorable Chair, I will not be going into a strange or new space by reason of my previous experience. I have spent time at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and while at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I interacted intimately with the UN system. I campaigned for Kenya to sit on the UN Security Council. I have represented Kenya at the UN General Assembly in New York countless times. I have interacted with the leadership of the UN officers in Nairobi, including the current Director General of UNON, Her Excellency Zainab Hawa Bangura, the current Executive Director of UNEP, Her Excellency Inga Anderson, and other officers that support the ecosystem of the UN in Nairobi. I believe I'll not be walking into a space that I'll find strange or new. I'll walk into a space where I am well familiar. I'm also familiar with a large number of our foreign service. And so I believe that I am ready to serve. And should you give me the go-ahead, should you give the nod, or should you approve of my nomination, Honorable Chair, I believe I would be a good fit and I would be ready to hit the road right away. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Babu. We've listened to you. We know you. We can only wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Members, what do you suggest? We have... yeah, that's what I was asking. So we do a 5-minute break? Let's do a 5-minute break. And then we call IG Gabo. And also to allow our brothers, so we can finish on time, to allow our Muslim brothers to go and worship. So, 5 minutes break. Yes, please leave at your liberty. Yes. Or you have to leave. Asante.
It is a story of transformation. One